So this particular lecture is about the constructors and the types of constructors, right? So first we are going to understand what are the constructors, and then we will see what are the different types of constructors. So whatever we are doing, we are just understanding the concept of it, and then we are doing it with the help of the demo program, and we are understanding it, right? So first of all, what is a constructor? See, basically constructor is a special function, I would say, right? Constructor is a special function of a class which is going to initialize the attributes of a class, the objects of a class, right? Now in C++, constructor is automatically called when the object is created. We all know what is an object. Object is just an instance of the class. So whenever the object is created in the main program, instance of the class is created, the constructor is automatically called, right? So we have few things which are need to be remembered for the constructors. They are, just remember these concepts, that is, constructor is little bit different from the normal function. I was saying that it is a special function of the class. It is a special function of the class, right? So basic things are, constructor has same name as the class itself. That means whenever you are going to define or initialize the constructor, the name of the constructor will be the same as of the class name. Example, if I am defining the class name as my class or student, so the constructor of this particular class will be student only. So you have to remember, the name of the constructor is going to be the same as the class name itself. Okay, that is the first point. Second point, in normal functions we have seen that constructors have a return type. Sorry, in normal functions we have seen the functions have a return type, but the constructors do not have any return type. So whenever you are defining the constructors, these are basically the functions which do not have the return type. So you are not needed to define a return type for a constructor. Next, third point, a constructor is automatically called when an object is created. So whenever the object is created, the constructor is automatically called by the compiler. Okay. Next, if we do not specify a constructor, C++ compiler generates a default constructor for us, right? Now we are just going to see in further slides what are default constructors. Okay. So whenever in a C program, if we have not defined a constructor, the compiler will automatically generate a default constructor for us. Now let's see the types of constructor. We have three types of constructors. Basically, we have two types of constructors which are called as parameterized and non-parameterized. And in further division, it is called as the default constructor, the parameterized constructor, and the copy constructor, right? So default constructor is a non-parameterized constructor. That means, as I told you, the name of the constructor will be the same of the class name. If the class name is vehicle, so the constructor name is also going to be vehicle. Vehicle and the parentheses which are empty. That means no parameters are being passed in this particular constructor. That is called as default or non-parameterized constructor, right? Then next we have the second type, that is the parameterized. In this parameterized type, we have two types. One is called as simple parameterized and the other one is called as the copy constructor. Now this is the same. The class name will be the same as the constructor name. And in the parentheses, we are going to pass the parameters. That is why we are calling it as parameterized constructor, right? Now we are going to see what are these default constructors and the parameterized constructors with the help of the programs. Now default constructor, I told you what is it? It does not have any argument in this, right? So no parameters are passed in the default constructors. Okay, so let's see how do we do it. We are going to see a program. See, this is the basic thing, that is we have include IO stream using namespace. Now, what is this? This is the defining of a class. Here I have defined a class. This is the syntax class and the class name. This is what? This is construct. This is the name of the class, that is construct. Now, I have started the parenthesis, curly braces, public, this is for the next line, B colon, and I'm going to print C dot B. So this is for printing the values of, that is instance. This is this instance of class construct, that is C. So C dot A, here these are the data members, and C dot B. Return 1. Why return 1? Because this is the integer, this is the main program, so it has to return a value. So return 1 or return 0. Then the curly braces is closed. And when I execute this particular program, the output will be what? It will be A colon 10. Why A colon? Because this is printed A colon, and then C dot A. The value of C dot A will be 10. Here constructor has initialized the values for A, data member A. That is A is equal to 10. So A is equal to 10 and B colon. So B colon is printed out here, and the value C dot B, that is construct is here, and B value is 20. So this is 20 is printed out here. Now one thing you have to remember, that is for the class, when you are defining the class, the curly braces are closed here, and then you have to provide a semicolon, right? After completing the class, curly braces, semicolon is to be provided in the syntax. So that defines the class. So this is how we are going to define the default constructor. Now let's see how to define the parameterized constructor. Now see, basically what is parameterized constructor? It is simple that when we are passing the arguments, when we have parameters in the constructor, then it is called as the parameterized constructor. Typically, these arguments help initialize an object when it is created. So whenever the object is created, it is going to help you to initialize it, right? Next, to create a parameterized constructor, simply add parameters to it the way you would do to any other function. When you define the constructor's body, use the parameters to initialize the object. Okay, so let's see how to do it practically. This is the demo program for the parameterized constructor. Now here you see it is using namespace std, the same thing, include iostream. Now see, this is the one, this is the part I have started with the class. I have defined the class out here. What it is class. The name of the class is my class. Curly braces is started. This is what? This is the access specifier. This is the access specifier, that is the public. Int A semicolon, int B semicolon. These are what? These are here, the variables are initialized. Now, I've defined a constructor out here, that is the constructor name is same as the class name. My class, my class. Now, earlier we had what? Non-parameterized constructor or default constructor in which no parameters were passed here. That was simple braces, right? It was empty. That was non-parameterized. But in parameterized, I'm going to pass the arguments. I'm going to pass the two parameters, int x and int y, for a and b. So here what I have done, I have defined a is equal to x. That means the value of x is to be stored in a and the value of y is to be stored in b, that is b is equal to y, semicolon, and I'm closing the constructor function. No return type for the constructor class. Remember this. You are not going to define here return. No. This is the difference between the simple function and the constructor function, right? Then now what is it? This is the name of the class. This is the name of the class. This is the access specifier. These are the data members, right? Always remember these things. This is what? This is the part of the constructor. And now what is this? This is the method or the function of the class, right? So what it is, I have defined a method in the class. This is the method of the class itself, function of the class itself, that is void print, right? Void, because it is void, no return type will be there. Void print, it has what? C out, curly braces will start, C out greater than side, A colon and print A. C out greater than sign, slash n for the next line, B colon, sign and B semicolon, and then curly braces. This particular curly braces for this, and again you will give one more curly braces for closing the class. Okay, and then the semicolon. I missed that. Then the semicolon. Now this makes the complete class. This is the complete class. I hope this is clear. Now we are going to move in the main function. How we are going to define it? Int main. I'll start the curly braces. Why my class? Because this is here I am going to define the call the constructor. Now in this I am going to call the constructor M1, and here I am going to pass the parameters. In earlier section where I had default constructor, what was that? I defined constructor C. If you remember, I can show you. It was what? It was constructor C with no parameters. But here I'm going to define my class M1, the instance of the class, instance of the class, that is the object M1, and parameters 10 comma 20, and this is the semicolon. And now I'm going to call what? I'm going to call this particular function for M1. So M1 dot print braces, semicolon, and return 0 and closing of brace. This is what we have done. Now see, when it moved to int program, int main, this is by default, this particular constructor is called with the parameters 10 and 20. M1 is the instance of this, and M1 print will do what? It will move to this particular part and it will display what? A colon is printed, and the value of A here is 10. How it is 10? Because X is moved to A. And what is the value of X? X value is 10. I defined here it is int X, which is 10, and int Y, which is 20. So the values are here which are being defined in A and B, and that is what printed out here as A and B. So this is how we define the constructors as non-parameterized constructors, which is called as default constructor, and the parameterized constructor. The main thing is you need to understand how to define the class, access specifier, then you define the data members, then the construct function, and then you define the methods of that particular class, close it, and then define the main program, and we are going to create the instances of that particular class, which are the objects, and then we are going to call the functions of that particular objects and the class. So this is how we define the constructor.